So far, this was our latest update, over $9,000. That feeds up to 362 South Jersey families. Dave Sholler, for one final weekend, is the Vice President of Public Relations for the UFC. We'll tell you about his new venture in just a second, but you're going out with a bang at MSG. My brother, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's great to be back with you guys. And first and foremost, you can count on me for a donation. I think what you guys are doing is fantastic for the families in need in South Jersey. So count on me. I will log on to the website right after this and make a donation. So hats off to you guys. I'm sitting here in the back hallways of one of the most famous arenas in the world, Madison Square Garden, just reflecting. It's been one incredible journey here, 8 years at the UFC, and I get to go out tomorrow night with 3 world title fights at UFC 205, live on pay-per-view, headlined by Conor McGregor and Philadelphia's own Eddie Alvarez. And the atmosphere all week, gentlemen, has been very, very special. New York has embraced the UFC in even ways that I couldn't imagine, from local media to the fans to the local bars and establishments. It's just been a very, very festive week, and it's going to be very special. I'm here in one of our back offices looking at some of the celebrities that are going to be here. Some really A-plus names are coming to the fight. This is the weekend event for fight fans and sports fans across the world.
UFC 205, as Dave mentioned, Madison Square Garden, that's special in itself. This was a challenge for the organization for years to get into New York. Then you do it with a bang, and you have a headline like Alvarez McGregor. What makes this headlining fight unique and special in the building that it's going to be in?
Well, I mean, for starters, you're taking a look at Conor McGregor having a chance to become the first ever fighter in UFC history to hold 2 titles simultaneously. So he's currently the featherweight champion. He's fighting Eddie Alvarez, who's the 55-pound champion. So if he wins, he'll become the first fighter in UFC history to hold 2 belts simultaneously. And then you have Eddie Alvarez, who's really traveled all over the world, fought in every major promotion except the UFC, debuts in the UFC a couple of years ago and instantly becomes an immediate threat to the challenge of the champion, becomes the champion earlier this year, and it's just been a whirlwind. I don't know if you had a chance to see SportsCenter yesterday, Mike and Pete. It was a very, very heated press conference with chairs and mink coats and all the different drama that has come to be expected with a Conor McGregor festivity. So it's a very, very special fight. You've got the most polarizing, charismatic figure in the history of our sport in Conor McGregor, taking on the blue-collar kid, the underground king, as he calls himself, Eddie Alvarez. It's a really, really big moment for our sport.
Yeah, and, you mentioned a chair. There's always some sort of pre-fight stuff when McGregor is involved here. But, a lot of people think this might be his most difficult fight that, in his UFC career right here. Do you concur that this is his biggest challenge?
Stylistically, I 1,000% agree with that assessment, Mike. When you look at what Eddie is really, really good at, it's wrestling, it's grappling, and it's really dictating the pace of the fight to his terms. If you look back on how he fought former lightweight champion Anthony Pettis, a very dynamic striker in the same vein as Conor McGregor, he was able to use his pedigree as a former high school standout wrestler and world-renowned grappler and pin Anthony in tough situations, use the fence, use his grappling. You'd have to think that that's what he's going to be looking to do to Conor McGregor. Where Conor is really, really elite is at space and distance management. So I think the challenge for Eddie in that first round tomorrow night is going to be trying to close the distance to make it the type of fight that he needs it to be to retain his title.
Dave Sholler is the Vice President of Public Relations for UFC 205. It's McGregor and Alvarez. And, you mentioned that in this situation here, you've got McGregor in the same situation where, he keeps fighting out of his weight class. It seems like he cannot find anybody to kind of get into his weight class with him. So, do you put him at a disadvantage tonight? I see a lot of people. We have a poll question up at 973 ESPN that seem like they think that it seems that the poll is going that he is an overwhelming favorite here to the listeners out there.
Well, listen, I think at this point in his career, he's a natural 155-pound fighter. The weight cut is a lot easier for him to manage than it was at 145 pounds. It was interesting today at our pre-weigh-in event here in New York. He actually exchanged words with Tyron Woodley, who's our 170-pound champion. And I was talking to Dana White, and I said, Conor at this point would fight our heavyweight champion. This is the type of guy that he's a promoter's dream. He does everything you need him to do, both in and out of the octagon. Is he a handful at times? Sure. But many elite athletes can be. But tomorrow night, when his music hits and he makes that walk, the one thing that I can tell you that is the most reassuring from my perspective on the promoter side is he's going to go in there and he's going to do everything he can to entertain. And in this day and age, not much more you can ask.
So you mean like the quote where he says, I operate on my own time and I'm running early on my time?
Yeah, he's from a scheduling perspective, PT, I've always known you to be very punctual. He is about as
That's not true.
Well, listen,
For shower
in
requests, I want time. For the rest of the world, it's PT time.
Yeah, so he has some time management issues, but listen, when the red light goes on for this guy, he's been money time and time again. One point that I don't think is getting enough shine is how well Eddie Alvarez has handled this moment. He's never done this much media. He's never had this much exposure. Yesterday, the fans were very, very anti-Eddie, and he has just handled it with such a calm, cool, Philadelphia blue-collar demeanor that we've come to expect from, fighters and athletes from our market. So he's definitely stood up to the bright lights, and we'll see if he can do it one more time tomorrow night at MSG.
Yeah, and then that one, cardio could come into play here. That could be the difference between those two, for my opinion anyway.
Yeah, it's a really key factor. You don't see Eddie Alvarez get tired very often in fights, and this guy has fought in some of the highest altitudes that are possible in our sport. So he's fought in Mexico City. He's fought all over the world. This guy understands altitude management as well. There's been some barbs traded from Eddie where he's questioned Conor's conditioning, and I think if you're Eddie Alvarez, we talked about it earlier, it's the wrestling, it's the grappling, and it's seeing if you can drag Conor into those deeper rounds, third, fourth, fifth, where you really have to test that oxygen. And then one thing that happens to almost every fighter, guys, and I know you know this, is the adrenaline management. When you have the first time ever 20,000 fans, a record live gate in attendance here, the energy is going to be incredibly palpable. You have to prepare yourself mentally and physically for that because, when the referee says it's time to go, you have to switch. You have to flip the switch and be ready to compete.
UFC 205, we're talking with Dave Sholler, and of course, Eddie Alvarez started off yesterday before Conor McGregor was even there saying, hey, I'm half Irish, where's the other guy? Like, what's going on? So we were talking XFL, we were talking nicknames. You have the Chosen One versus the Wonder Boy. Tell us about that. What
a fantastic contrast in styles. You have, in my opinion, one of the most elite, dynamic, colorful strikers you'll ever see in Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. This guy has won just about every title that you can win in professional kickboxing. He's going to bring in a very, very dynamic skill set against Tyron Woodley, a former standout at the University of Missouri Wrestling, who packs, in my opinion, one of the heaviest right hands in the history of the game. So you've got the classic power puncher against the finesse striker. That, to me, is going to be a fantastic matchup. And then, obviously, our third title fight is, in my opinion, could very well soon be one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the world, regardless of gender. Joanna Jędrzejczyk of Poland, she's taking on a fellow Polish striker, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, in what I think could be a sleeper for fight of the night. Two of the really, really hard-hitting women's strawweight fighters that we have. And if you've had a chance to see Joanna fight, there is a dog inside of her that when it comes out, it is Tyson-esque, and I'm looking forward to seeing that fight. 3 title fights tomorrow night.
Yeah, our producer, Josh Henning, sent that message to me that he thinks that's going to be a violent fight as well. So you got that one. And then, of course, the female name that many people will recognize is Miesha Tate, and she will fight again here and up against Pennington. And this is a big one for Tate to keep her name kind of relevant in that female field.
It's so true, and I don't think enough people give Rocky Pennington credit for the strides she's made over the last 2 years as a fighter. This is a really, really intriguing fight for Miesha. On paper, if you were looking at their records and their skill sets, you'd probably say this is a fight that Miesha would be the heavy favorite in. But Rocky is very durable. She's very tough, and she's been in tough spots in her career before. So I'm interested to see, coming off the title loss, how Miesha responds. And talking to her management today, it sounds like she's had a fantastic camp. She has had some documented weight cutting troubles in the past couple of fights, but she made weight very easily today. So I think she's rededicated, recommitted. And let's not forget, this is the woman who was our champion. And with Ronda Rousey returning, Amanda Nunes obviously as the champ, it's a very, very interesting division, the women's bantamweight division.
Dave Sholler, UFC 205, 3 title fights at Madison Square Garden. But as Mike mentioned, Dave, this is your last event for the UFC. You are coming home, baby. So tell us a little bit about your next move.
Yeah, I'm coming home after 8 incredible years here at the UFC. It's time to come back to the Philadelphia area. It's time to come back to South Jersey. I've accepted a job as Vice President of Communications for the Philadelphia 76ers. Had the opportunity to come work for Scott O'Neal and Brian Colangelo, Josh Harris, David Blitzer. I just truly, deeply believe in what they are building in Philadelphia. As Mike and you know well, Pete, I was an intern for the Sixers back in 2003, so this is really full circle for me. Had a chance to go to the new facility, had a chance to interview with key staff, and the energy in the Sixers office is very palpable. Understand we've had some injuries and some setbacks, but I really, truly believe in where this franchise is heading. So for the chance to come home after 8 really, really awesome years, to have a chance to fulfill another dream in Philadelphia, I can't wait. I'm so blessed.
And you said you're in the hallways of one of America's greatest arenas of all time, reflecting. So do you have a favorite UFC moment or event?
I've had so many incredible moments over the years, but I'll take you back to my WEC days. I had some great moments when I started there because we were grinding it out. The sport was not what the sport is today. And I even remember being on this very show, and people after the interview where I said I was moving out to Vegas to work in mixed martial arts, some folks said, "You're going to work in cage fighting?" And they kind of rolled their eyes. But, I truly believe in what the vision Dana White had set forth. And I think some of my favorite moments have been the relationships I've had with fighters like Donald Cerrone or the Ronda Rouseys of the world, the Anthony Pettis, who I mentioned before, Uriah Faber, seeing the absolute explosion of our sport in international markets through guys like Conor McGregor and Joanna Jędrzejczyk. So I've had a really, really fun ride, and now it's time to go home.
Dave Scholler's with us, and it's funny because when you made that announcement that you were going to the Sixers, I flashed back to you and I sitting in a broom closet and saying, man, this guy just kept showing up, man. He would say, hey, I want to come help out, and I'd say, hey, come on and help out, and then you would get there before I would get there half the mornings. But it's pretty cool to see it all come around and doing the boxing segments that we used to do, and as you mentioned, the early cage fighting, and then all of a sudden UFC, and now back to the Sixers, which, by the way, speaking of which, we have another Sixers Experience registration coming up in just a couple of minutes. We're giving people a chance to go down on the court, sit for a quarter with Tom McGinnis during the game, and maybe Dave Scholler will even come and shake your hand.
Yeah, listen, not only would I love to do that, it'd be my honor. And, Mike, I often tell the story to, I feel like the elder statesman now, to some of the younger guys on our staff here at UFC. And, we didn't make a ton of money back then, if money at all, in the Linwood studios. But the one thing that kept us pushing forward was a passion and a belief. And, I would be remiss to say on Veterans Day today, we got to be thankful for the men and women of our armed forces who made it all possible to allow us, guys like us, to live the sports dream every single day. We've come a long way, Mike Gill.
We sure have. You're right. There were times when I was coming in and no paycheck kept coming in, and I didn't know why. And I said, well, I'm going to keep doing this until I figure it out, for no pay for a while. And that was, 12 years ago or so. And now here we are, Dave Scholler. This fight, this card, if you're not watching McGregor, and obviously everybody is keen on that one, if I'm watching this event for the first time, which fight should I sit down in front of and get ready for?
Well, I'm going to give you an appetizer. Live and free on Fox Sports 1. Toms River native Frankie Edgar is taking on Jeremy Stevens in the televised prelims. A really, really fun matchup. Anybody who knows Frankie Edgar knows that when you talk about heart in professional sports, nobody embodies it more than Frankie Edgar. So he's looking to make his way back to the title picture against a very hard-hitting Jeremy Stevens from San Diego, a guy who knows how to push the pace. I know Josh is a big fan from your team there. I'm sure he would tell you from his mixed martial arts experience, if Joanna and Carolina isn't the fight of the night, you're probably looking at Frankie and Jeremy setting the stage otherwise. A really, really compelling fight for a Jersey guy, and that's live and free on Fox Sports 1, an appetizer to the pay-per-view.
There you go, everybody. Dave Sholler, his last event at Madison Square Garden for UFC. He's coming back. And by the way, PhillyVoice.com, Joe Santalaquita wrote just an unbelievable piece about Dave's journey. You should check that out. For those of you who know Dave or don't know Dave and heard him over the years here, read that article. It gives you a great insight to what kind of guy Dave is and what kind of guy the Philadelphia 76ers are about to get on their team. Dave, we will see you soon, pal. Enjoy the fights, and congratulations on all your success, buddy.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks so much.